Hi, this is Sarah from Amazing If, and I'm here with this week's bonus episode to share some ideas on 3 techniques to build your confidence. So, technique number 1, asking why. This might sound quite simple, but actually, if you're experiencing a situation where you're not feeling particularly confident, keep asking yourself why. Sometimes the first reason that we think we're not feeling particularly confident or that we're worried about something isn't really the root cause of an issue. And so continuing to ask yourself why really helps you to get to grips with what is it that's really causing you the problem, and actually what's the thing that you really need to address to be able to get better. So, for example, if you come out of a meeting and feel like, oh, I really lacked confidence in that meeting. Okay, so why did you lack confidence in that meeting? Maybe it was because you didn't answer questions that you got asked very well. Okay, so why was that? Okay, well, maybe I felt like I should know all the answers. Maybe I got asked some questions on some things that I just hadn't anticipated, so I didn't feel as prepared as I could have been. And then just keep asking yourself why. And actually, ultimately there, for that example, you might get to the point where you realise you've maybe got an unrealistic expectation of yourself. You're maybe expecting yourself to know all of the answers to everything, and that actually is unrealistic, so actually you don't need to worry about it. Or it might help you to identify a specific knowledge gap that you want to go away and work on and learn a bit more about, so that you do feel a bit more prepared for the next meeting. But do remember on being prepared that just preparing more and more is not the answer to being more confident. But keep asking yourself why as you're working on your confidence gremlins. You'll find it's really helpful to be more specific about where you need to develop and why. So that's the first technique, first top tip. Secondly, spot the difference between assumptions and facts. I think this is incredibly important and one of the most useful things you can do as you're trying to build your confidence. Most confidence gremlins are assumptions to an extent. They're things that exist in your head that often you've not tested, so you actually don't know if they're true or not. So it might be something like, I'm not smart enough, I don't know enough, I'm not a very good presenter. And often I'll ask people and say, so how do you know that that's true? And it's just, you just think it is. You're just saying, I just know I'm not smart enough. But then you can't really give any evidence. You can't really demonstrate that that's a fact. And so the first thing I really encourage people to do is to get some facts. Make sure that you've got some objective feedback into things that are true, and therefore you can know what to work on, and things that maybe are just assumptions. Because you might think I'm a terrible presenter, whereas actually when you get some feedback, people say, no, you're pretty good at presenting, but there's perhaps one thing that you could do a bit better to be that little bit better at presenting. But it's not that you're a terrible presenter and you've made that assumption just because based on your own point of view or because you haven't really asked for any feedback in the past. And the things that are really helpful is that when you know what's an assumption versus a fact, you also know what you need to do something about. So, for example, on my presentation example there that we were just talking about, I know that when I present, I've had feedback before that I use the words kind of too often. So I'll often say, we kind of maybe want to do this, or we kind of want to do that. Now, that is a fact that I say that. And it's a fact, actually, that I probably say it too often, because I've had people be able to count before and done a little tally of just how many times I say it in a presentation. And of course, if you're repeating a statement too often, that can become distracting and it can stop you from being a brilliant presenter. So it's not a fact that I'm not a good presenter or that I'm not compelling or interesting, but it is a fact that I potentially repeat that word too often. So that's something that I then know I can work on. So try and spot that difference between assumption and fact. Really challenge yourself on that. And lastly, number 3, the 80-20 rule. So we talk about this in some of our podcasts, but really think about spending 80% of your time focused on your strengths and 20% of your time developing your weaknesses and overcoming your confidence gremlins. So many of us get obsessed with spending too much time and effort on those things that we're not so good at, or really worrying and spending lots of energy and time worrying about our confidence gremlins, and forget to focus on all of those things that we're really great at. I know that the people that are brilliant at what they do tend to be very focused on where they add value and how they can make sure they add as much value as possible in as many situations as possible. And if you do that, that's really what will take you from being good or maybe really good in your role and in your organisation to absolutely brilliant. So that's it for this week's bonus episode. Catch us on Monday when we'll have our next full episode on how to overcome your confidence gremlins. And so that's everything from me. Goodbye.